Okay, so basically, one of the interesting things about this course is that it takes a whole history of the philosophy of science. So it goes right back. We go right back to the pre-Socratic philosophers, and we take on a journey right from the earliest theories right until the 20th century. But we're working backwards in a certain sense because we're starting with Popper. We do 3 weeks on Popper, so we're looking at the omega point, the final sort of culmination of philosophy of science first, and then we're going back forwards to the beginning. So from the pre-Socratic thinkers, what we would get is basically where these first few, don't worry about that, we can pick it up later, first few thinkers, first few ideas arose. So the really early points, really simple poetic points, how philosophy of science arose out of poetry almost. And then we move on to Aristotle, and from Aristotle we get a theory of causes. So we look at causality, we look at his theory of deduction, his view of science as being linked with deduction. We'll talk about that a bit more later. And then we'll get on to Bacon, and Bacon basically just throws out Aristotle and everything that came before. So he just does a complete U-turn, provides a radically new scientific method, inductivism. And then after that, we look at who do we look at? It's Darwin. So we read Darwin. So we spent a couple of weeks reading Darwin. So that's quite good. And then after that, we get on to Freud, and we look at Freud's psychoanalysis, 20th century sort of stuff. And then we can return to Popper and see why, basically Popper argues against Bacon, flipping the thing again, and argues against Freud, saying that, Freud's method isn't scientific. So basically, we have it's almost a whole narrative. So you can almost look at this as being one large story, one large narrative. So, and that I think will help you to have a sort of context of all these thinkers and why we've chosen these thinkers, because there is a long story we're trying to tell. And I think that would help to make it easier for you to remember the arguments and readings, because we'll see that there is a story, there are characters, and we want to try and bring out these characters and their arguments, their disputes, and get you to take sides and see which ones you prefer. And also use some of the literary techniques we're using in the other class as well, some of the techniques we're using to explore poetry and other things to unpack these texts. So if you don't understand everything, if you don't understand a lot of the mathematics or logic in here in the middle sections, a lot of the middle sections, I mean, we won't even be looking at. So really, close reading of the key arguments, and I think that will make it really interesting. So